Good evening, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Riff Amps. Okay, first of all, apologies. There was no video on Sunday. I did put a post on YouTube in the community section. Hopefully, you all saw that. But essentially, tail end of last week, I was doing the boring side of the business, all the admin, all the paperwork, the bookkeeping, the accounting, all of that stuff. That's just not interesting. I didn't get much amp work done. And of the stuff that I did do, most of it wasn't exciting enough to film to show you. But I did film some stuff which I'm going to put in this video, but it wasn't enough. It was nowhere near enough to put 20-25 minutes together for you to all watch on your iPads on a Sunday morning. So I do apologise. It happens every now and again when you're running a business by yourself. You've got to do the boring stuff as well. So it just means that something's got to give. I think I've missed 2 videos since the start of the year, so not bad. But at least you've got this one to catch up on. Anyway, let's go back to Q&A. Gaz Moss78, nice one Gaz, says he never realised that standby switches were such a hot topic. Yeah, they are. Everyone's got their 2 cents on them. Should you use them? Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. This is why you should use them. This is why you shouldn't. In that amplifier, it's designed perfectly and it's safe to use, but in that one, it's not. It goes on for ever. It just does not stop this conversation and argument. Now, as I said in last week's video, general rule of thumb, use it if you want to, don't use it if you don't want to. It probably won't make enough of a difference. So yeah, just do that. If you have a hand-built amplifier and you can reach the builder and it's got a standby switch, talk to them about it and say, how does this work? What do you recommend I do? How does it work? Are there any things I need to be aware of? But a properly designed and installed standby switch should not put any excess or extra strain on the circuit if you use it. So I would use it if you want to. Don't use it if you don't. That's always my rule. But in my amplifiers, I always do them properly. So if you do want to use them, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, there you go. We'll leave it at that. So I had a very nice email from a chap who pointed out that I had yet to deburr the holes in this chassis. I hadn't forgotten to do it. It's just that I had to get that particular section filmed to get the video out in time. But just to satisfy all of your curiosities, here is my deburring tool. Call it a whirly bob. We'll do this hole, for example. Hopefully that stays in focus. And it just puts a nice chamfer on that hole. Doesn't take long. You can see how much it takes off actually. Yeah, and the last one. Then we've got no burrs on there, and that's all ready to go. Just had this thing dropped in. This is a Fender silver plate Princeton Reverb. Now, customer thinks it's a 1976, and the reason we think it's a 1976 is because the grill cloth has got the orange striping. Okay, 70 to 75, it's got the blue sparkle cloth, but this has got the orange stripe, which came in 1976. However, the transformers date to 73 and 74, and so does the chassis stamp. Now, it hasn't got the underline on the logo, so I need to double check what that means. But Does that, so what's the age of the amp? We just don't know. I mean, there is a possibility, of course, that this is a replacement cloth, but we don't know. Anyway, customer says this amp has been in storage for about 10 years, I think he said, 9-10 years. And he is a working musician, a pro sessioner, and wants to get this thing gig ready. So it's come in for a check over, some TLC service as required. So we'll be able to go through it and see what's what. But let's give it an inspection. So the front panel, surprisingly nice condition. You can still see the machine marks when they. It's got the witch hat knobs. It's got the metal poker chip around the jewel light. Let's spin it around. Serial number A31131. It's an export model, so it's got the voltage selector switch on it. Unfortunately, it's got a replacement foot switch, but that's okay. Still got the Fender logo on the back of the speaker socket. And it's loaded with... Is that the Utah or is that the CTS? I'll have to double check. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I will confirm and let you all know. But yeah, isn't that cool? He said it's got the original valves in it, apart from the power valves, which he swapped out for another new old stock set that he had. So, yeah, let's get the rear panel off, the chassis removed, and let's have a look inside. Okay, Matthew McPhail 7703 says, could I explain and or show how you mark and drill out the power transformer holes on the chassis? Just wondering what's involved in doing that compared to the valve sockets that are circular. I'd imagine getting nice straight lines require a different set of tools to do the job properly. Two ways of doing that. First one is sometimes the blank chassis that you buy, they're already pre-done. And then if you need to enlarge the holes, you can do slightly, but that's what these are. These ones come with these transformers or transformer cutout pre-done, but that's for a drop-through style transformer. My preference, and it all depends on packaging, is some of the blank chassis like I use on the Angel Listed Signature, they don't have any transformer holes, and I simply use a stand-up transformer that doesn't drop through a hole. It just stands and mounts on the chassis itself, and therefore you haven't got to do the cutout. If for a particular reason I need to use a drop-through transformer and the chassis doesn't already have a cutout, I don't have that equipment here. What I do is I go up to a local machine shop who's got a CNC mill, and they just mark on and they mill it out with the correct radius corners. I take the transformer with me so we get the perfect fit, and we do it that way. So yeah, it's tricky. I mean, you probably could. I don't know if anyone does a punch that size, but you could either have it milled out or laser cut. If you're good with metal work and you don't mind using a file, you could hack it out, drill lots of holes roughly to the size, and then use hand tools to make it size. But I always think that's I don't like the finish on that, so I just go and pay a machinist an hour's labour to do the job properly for me. So yeah, it's a difficult one. If I was doing big volume stuff, I'd have all the chassis. If I was doing, 100 amplifiers a week, which I'm not, but let's say I was, I'd use a metal fab firm who would laser all of the holes in the chassis for me from a CAD design, and then bend them all and do all that for me. But I just don't do the numbers. And as I've said in previous videos, I do like the flexibility of being able to tweak and adjust things as I go. So there you go. Yeah. Most of the time you buy a chassis that's got the hole already there, or you use a stand-up transformer. Okay, chassis removed. It's in remarkable condition. Just a bit of dust on there, nothing. I've seen a lot worse for silver plate amps. Anyway, the mains transformer, 606 Schumacher. If we try and get you in so you can see. 34th week, 1973. Output transformer. 46th week of 1973. Reverb transformer, 23rd week of 1974. So, okay, at the moment we're looking at 74. I did double check the script logo. Sorry, the logo lost the underline in 74. So at the moment we're definitely looking at earliest 74, I think. The cap can, 16th week of 1974. Let's look at the valve complement, shall we? It's got 5U4 rectifier. That's an RCA. That's probably the original for the amplifier. This is the replacement set that he's put in. Very nice. Hopefully, it's still got the original preamp valves. V1 RCA 7025. Very nice. Very nice indeed. V2, which should be a 12AT7. It's a Mullard ECC 81. That's the British equivalent. So that's a replacement, but it is the correct type. V3, which is reverb recovery and third gain stage, is a Messer branded 7025. And your tremolo / phase inverter valve V4 is an RCA 12AX7. Very nice indeed. Okay, so that's the top of the chassis. Let's get this thing flipped over, have a look inside. Final question, Ian Thacker. Follow-up question from the CanCap discussion. Why use a presumably relatively expensive multi-section can cap rather than individual caps? Packaging usually. They take up less space, and whereas you've got to fit your filter stack on the board or on a board inside the chassis, you're working in we'll call it the X and Y dimension. A can cap works on the Z dimension, so as long as you've got the chassis space this direction, then you may as well use it. So it's a packaging thing really. I do like them for some things, and for other things I'm not so much of a fan. So it's mainly a packaging thing most of all. What have I done there? Yeah, that's right. So I'm just working on this 57 Tweed. Yeah, so I mean, I work both ways. There's also an argument for noise, in that if you can split your filter stack into, so that you haven't got them all in one place, you can have your preamp filters close to the preamp and your power filters closer to the power stage. There is an argument there that you can optimize noise reduction, stuff like that. But yeah, it's one of those things where there's it's not a simple answer. There's always, for if you say, oh, well, I want to do that, then there's always 3 or 4 considerations that you need to make. Well, what if I do it this way? Well, then that changes those, and you've got to think, oh, well, that changes that as well, and you've got to work your way through it. So sometimes it's for a simple reason like packaging. Other, it's it's a noise thing, or and you're also thinking ease of serviceability down the line, aren't you? So a lot of those old Marshalls, they've got the preamp filter on a cap can underneath the board. So when that eventually needs replacing, you're doing a hell of a fishing job to get that out and get the wires in the right place. Whereas if the caps are on the board, probably easier to do. So there's pros and cons, and you just kind of make the decision based on what you're doing. So yeah, good question, Ian. Thank you. Okay, inside the what I think is a late 74 or early 75, to be honest. I'm erring towards a 74, but anyway. It has had some work done before, but not a lot. Bias cap has not been changed. It's very clean inside though, isn't it? Very, very nice. It's got a lot of the blue moulded caps. It's had some of the electrolytics replaced, but not all of them. Well, you wouldn't do that one and that one at the same time, I don't know, since you're in there. The pots all date to 73, 74. The youngest pot I can find is late 74. But apart from that, it's a very clean amplifier. Looking at the vent hole on the cap can, starting to bulge out of there. Come on, let's get a better image. Come on, Mr. Macro. There we go. So, I'll test each section, but I would expect that that's going to need swapping out, especially if he wants this to be tour and roadworthy. The balance resistors for the heater circuit seem to be in nice condition. Definitely not burnt or charred. Those 100 ohms. And apart from that, it's quite nice, isn't it? It's really nice. Really nice indeed. Let's have a look along this side. Not bad at all. So let's fire this thing up on the bench, take some basic baseline voltage measurements, check the operating points, make sure everything's working as intended, and then I can come up with a plan for him. But I think we're going to, as he wants to gig this amplifier and tour it, let's swap out the rest of the electrolytics that haven't been done. Definitely this one. Test the cap can, but I'm going to suggest we do that. We'll go through service, check all the grounds, check all of the circuit is working as intended, and take it from there. But what a nice clean amp. He did say that he was going to swap out the stock speaker, keep that safe in a box, put a modern thing in for touring, and then if he does need to come and sell it, he can put the original back in. That's a good idea, something I highly recommend. But yeah, what a nice amplifier. Let's get it on the bench, and if I'm happy with its current running conditions, we'll take some power measurements and see what it's doing. Okay, silver plate, Princeton Reverb on the bench, up and running. I did my voltage checks, absolutely happy with how it's currently running. So at idle, so no signal, so we've got the volume on 0. Pulling 74 watts out of the wall. I'll be plus at the first node, so coming off the rectifier, although I am measuring at the first filter cap stage. 421 volts. I've got the tremolo defeated. We advance the volume control up. back it down. We're getting 10.2 volts, just over 10 volts RMS. Got a 1 kilohertz, 150 millivolt sine wave being injected in. Treble and bass on 0, no reverb, no tremolo. 10.2 volts into 8 ohms. Well, 10 times 10 is 100 divided by 8 is 12.5 watts. So, and these are meant to be 12 watts. So that is bang on where it should be. Very nice. And so, oh yeah, and at rated output, it pulls 93.6 watts out of the wall. B plus sags down to 387. Spectrum analyzer shows us harmonic profile. There's our fundamental. Second harmonic, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. We're only going up to 10 kilohertz here. Second, third, and fourth harmonics relatively similar. The third is slightly boosted, but not by much. But that is with the tone controls on 0. If I bring up the treble to 5, see we get quite a change there. We'll go back to 0. We go to 5. And then I'll bring the bass up to 5. That's the harmonic profile of this amplifier. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just back it down to a clean sine wave again. 10.2 volts, there you go. So that's the harmonic profile of the amplifier. That's our baseline reference. Now what we'll do is, if the output transformer for the 65 black plate comes back in time, we can do an A/B comparison between amps that are roughly 10 years apart. See if we can find any differences. But yeah, there you go. That's running quite nicely, actually. There's no hum. I can't find any parasitic oscillations. Maybe it's tiny bit if you drive the amplifier really hard. But nothing that I would be overly concerned about at the moment, as I still have yet to go through the amplifier. Sorry, you should be looking there. But yeah, there we are. A very nice and clean mid-70s Fender Princeton Reverb pre-service. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As usual, please give this video a thumbs up. All your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're still only on roughly 1/3 of the viewers who watch these videos are actually subscribers, so it'd be really nice to push those numbers up. If you're feeling really generous, why not join the channel like these guys have, and I will catch you all at the next one. Right, I did promise I'd give you an update on my race on... When was my race? Sunday at Cadwell Park. Long story short, I won. But I didn't think I was going to be honest. Excuse me. It was... I hadn't driven there in 5 years, so even though I remembered the place, it's such an incredible circuit. Very daunting. And you do have to build up slowly to it, which is what I did. So we went out in qualifying and oh, rewind, I had the chassis setup done on the car on Friday, and so that was all good. 2.5 hours on that alignment bench getting all the corner weights and stuff done, but yeah, the car was good. Anyway, we took it up to Cadwell Park out in qualifying, and I just built myself up slowly to the track, make sure I didn't make any stupid mistakes, just bring the car up to temperature, dial it in, slowly start attacking the corners and braking zones, and getting on the throttle earlier and earlier on corner exit, all that kind of stuff. No stupid mistakes. Built the car up, got my lap time down to I was one second off pole position around there, which I was quite disappointed at, because I knew there was a lot more time in the car. But problem with Cadwell Park, problem with most circuits, is when one of the faster classes come through, you just lose so much time. Anyway, but the car felt amazing, supremely balanced on the brakes, on the on turn-in. Tyre warm-up was a little bit slower than before, but looking at the lap times of all the other races going on, the track itself was slow. So I wasn't too worried about that. Anyway, onto the race. I had a really, really good scrap all the way through. But I was pretty much on the same pace as the other guys for the first half of the race. And then after my pit stop, where obviously we do tyre pressures and stuff like that, I came out of the pits and the car felt completely different. It was just perfect, where you just get that tiny, tiny bit of slip and slide, about 5% or whatever it is, where the car is just, it feels like it's floating. Every corner is easy. You can be as aggressive as you want, and the car just behaves. And then I found another 2.5 seconds per lap after that point. Just, fuel loads come down, tyre pressures were perfect, tyre temps were great, brake temps were great. Everything just came together. Because of my success penalty, I came out 10 seconds behind the leader. And then it took me 3 laps to catch him, overtake him, and then I gapped him at the line to 9.9 seconds, I think it was, at the end. So, yeah, really, really happy. It was a good race. Love Cadwell Park. Again, we don't know, it's rarely on the calendar, so you don't know how often you're going to get the chance to race there. So I'm glad I went there, glad I got the win, tick that one off. Got myself a nice trophy. The car survived. And yeah, all good news. So that's 3 wins this year, which is practically unheard of. But, so I'm next out at Silverstone again. Then what have we got? So we're doing Silverstone, Donington in September, Silverstone October, Burkett Relay at Silverstone GP in October, and then North Wales Anglesey in November. I think I've told you that already. But yeah, racing was good. Lovely weekend. Had a great time. Car is back to its best. And also, interestingly, I was running a very expensive race oil, engine oil. Very, very expensive stuff. But my car was consuming quite a lot of it. So just for fun, I drained all that out and I put in some of the cheapest semi-synthetic 10W40 you can buy. Put it in there, and it hasn't burnt any oil since. And I've done 2 races on that now, and I can't work out why. It must be the additives or something in there, because with the expensive race oil, it was burning. I was using 1 litre, 1 quart, every hour of track time. Yet now, I've now done 2 race weekends, so that's 140 minutes. And I haven't used any oil. And all I did was switch to the cheap stuff, so I don't know what's going on there. So bizarre. Anyway, so I think what I'll actually do is drain it out, measure what's in there, because I know I put exactly 4 litres, 1 US gallon in, which is what it takes. I'll drain it out and see exactly what it's burnt, but it's on the old oil it would have burnt 2 quarts or 2 litres by now, and it hasn't. So I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. But it's good news. The cheaper oil seems to it doesn't want to burn. The engine doesn't like it, obviously. Anyway, yeah, but that was it. Interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching.